All right, guys, what's up? Welcome back to another week of Health Unscripted. This week we did something a little different. I asked for Q&As. Oh, I can't get my headphones right. I asked for Q&As online for a question box so that I could go ahead and answer a bunch of stuff for you guys. And I did get a mix of health questions. I did get a mix of personal questions. So what do I have here? I have 14 questions in all, which is actually not that bad. I am going to go into depth on some of these. So I hope this episode isn't super long. I'm going to try and pound through these questions and get through them and see what we got. All right. So what I did for these question boxes is I categorized them. So first we're going to do like health and nutrition stuff. Then we're going to go more into the personal route, everyone's favorite. They were PG questions. I thank you guys very much for respecting the PG moment, although maybe we'll make a fun podcast sometime, but not right now. So, okay, starting off with question number one, it was actually pretty funny. Says, I see you dancing and eating cookies. What kind of cookies? So on Instagram, I do this little like dancing and dinner thing sometimes, and I often eat a snack before, as I'm cooking my meal. Like, I don't know if a lot of people do this, but the cookies I'm usually eating are Alyssa's cookies. They are like, I know my Publix has them, Whole Foods has them. They're like a special health brand. So Alyssa's cookies, you can look them up online. And they have three flavors. They have the vegan cookies, the oatmeal cookies, and the chocolate cookies. I haven't had the chocolate, surprisingly, but I love the vegan cookies. I don't know why. It's just the consistency versus the oatmeal. It's so good. And you put them in the fridge, and they are so macro friendly, and they have 5 grams of fiber per cookie. Like, if you can't reach your fiber, go for Alyssa's cookies. But they're made of oats and psyllium and chia and flask. So they have all these nice little fiber-filled ingredients in there. But they're so good for a healthy cookie. So those are the cookies I eat. Go check them out. And it's also an inside joke within Team BDN that like you'll become addicted to Alyssa's cookies. So sorry, not sorry if you're addicted to Alyssa's cookies. Question number two, thoughts on intermittent fasting. So I have a whole podcast episode on this already. If you scroll back to the beginning of Health Unscripted, there's a whole podcast episode on intermittent fasting. And really, my views have not changed. There is more data that's coming out or that has come out for intermittent fasting. So I still don't recommend it for women of childbearing age. If you're a man, go for it. Your hormones are way different. But for women, I generally don't love it for women of childbearing age because it doesn't do great things for our sex hormones and for making us feel amazing. So I don't love it. Post-menopause, less of an effect. It can actually really help here. And, I'm sure there wasn't any context in this question. It was just thoughts on intermittent fasting. So for weight loss, I don't love it. It's just another way to put yourself into a calorie deficit. I think it's restrictive. It makes it hard to have like a social life if you can't have breakfast meetings, or then you stop eating at like 6 p.m. and you can't go out with friends and have dinner or family or anything like that. It makes date night hard. Like, I don't think it's sustainable in that way. As far as intermittent fasting on like digestive health or autophagy or anything like that, like, yes, there's some data out there, but I think you're really fine with the 10 to 12 hours of fasting. You don't really, not everyone needs to go into this 12 hours of fasting thing or 16 hours of fasting or even full day fasts. I think the people some of the people who look at this stuff kind of look at it as like a cure-all or some form of amazing healing, where if we really just took a step back and focused on sleep, steps, more, exercise, eating more nutritious foods, water, like we would get better results just focusing on nailing the basics instead of doing these extreme measures. So I don't really love it. As far as studies coming out for weight loss as well, there was a study that I went over on my Instagram probably a couple months ago. Like, it's not new at this point, but it was found to be no more advantageous or not advantageous to continuous calorie restricted eating. So what that means is like intermittent fasting, where you cut calories based on the fasting and timing of eating, versus just being in a standard calorie deficit and being able to eat morning, night, whatever time you want. There was no difference at all. In fact, the continuous eating group did better. So I would vote no intermittent fasting for weight loss, and especially for women. So those are my thoughts on intermittent fasting. Question number three, thoughts on adding salt to water. Who should do this and why? So there's a big thing right now, obviously, with adding electrolytes to water. I do it. I drink an element packet every single day. I have a code that I'll post at the bottom to get you guys, if you want to check it out, you get a free variety pack with any purchase. So I love element, but here's the thing. Like, it's recommended for those who exercise and sweat a lot. So if you're outside a lot, in a hot climate and you're outside a lot, you're doing strenuous exercise and you're sweating a lot, garden work, things like that, like you need to replace your electrolytes as well as water. I think it's also good for those who drink a lot of water, like, and you predominantly have clear urine. I don't love to see clear urine. I like to see like a tint of yellow to make sure we're staying hydrated. So, sometimes if we are drinking a lot of water, and here's the thing too, is everyone owns like a filter of some sort, right? Whether it's Brita or a fridge filter or a Berkey filter, like things, filtered water, right? A lot of those purified filtered water, or we reach for like the purified brands of water at the store. The problem is those don't really contain any minerals. So we're not supplementing, we're not getting those electrolytes back in as we would if we were drinking, say, spring water. So if you're drinking a lot of purified water and a lot of filtered water and you still feel thirsty, it's because we're not getting those electrolytes in. That's where you're also going to see a lot of clear urine. So this is where I would say electrolyte replacement is good. You don't have to do the packets. You can simply salt your water or salt your food. Okay. You don't have to do anything like that. But obviously before starting a salt supplement, a sodium supplement, anything like that with potassium, I would check with your doctor to make sure it's okay. Cause I don't know your electrolyte levels. I don't know what's going on with your blood work. I don't know if you have high blood pressure. And in that case, we don't really want too much sodium or an imbalance of potassium and sodium. So always like check with your doctor before you start on one of these supplements. For me specifically, I have low blood pressure as well. Generally is in like the low 100s to 60s. Sometimes it dips into the 90s over 50s. So a salt packet for me helps me feel better and not stay so low blood pressure. I don't get as dizzy, not as much orthostatic hypotension, which is when you stand up too fast and you get a little dizzy. So the salt packets actually help me in this regard. And I also salt my food. I know salt in the industry is like or was a no-no. It's becoming more accepted. When I used to do competitions back in the day, it was like, you couldn't have any salt. You have to use Mrs. Dash, absolutely no salt. And it's like, do you understand how unhealthy that was? Like, I probably could have felt way better with just adding some salt packets in there. So those are my thoughts on salt to water. Always check before you add an electrolyte supplement to anything, to your daily routine. I don't want to, anyone to go into any type of high blood sugar or any type of crisis if it can be avoided. Too much potassium is also a bad thing, right? Guys, I'm going to throw these headphones across the room. If you're watching the video, you've seen me like fuss with it. If not, you probably just heard it all moving. But I like doing this Q&A because then I can just like freely talk to you guys. If you have any additional questions, by the way, you can always slide in my DMs or, send me screenshots, whatever, and just ask me on Instagram and I'll definitely answer these for you. Number 4, how long should a cut last? I like this because, it means that you have an end goal in mind. Most of us live in a chronic calorie deficit, or at least I did for years. We don't come out of it. So technically, there's no right or wrong answer here. A cut should technically last as long as your body allows it to, as long as your biofeedback is still pretty positive and you're still seeing results. When we hit the point of like irregular cycles for women, like menstrual cycles are taking a dump, or we just don't have them, like we're not getting periods anymore, that's when we need to come out. When we're feeling overly fatigued, tired, irritable, cranky, like maybe we need to come out. When we're living off of caffeine, when we're getting really poor sleep, when our thyroid really, when we're in a deficit, our thyroid is going to downregulate some. So if we're starting to really get symptoms of that and it's just not feeling good, we can come out. When we've hit our goal, we can come out, right? Like if you hit your goal in 8 weeks, you don't have to stay in a cut the whole 12 or 16 weeks. So what I would say for most people is start with 12 to 16 weeks, see how you feel, see how your body's responding. It also depends on the depth of your cut. Like, are we doing a 10% cut? Are we doing a 20% cut? Did you cut to, the problem is most people cut way too much and they go into like a 30 or 40% calorie deficit, and that's way too low. That is probably done shorter than, let's say, a 10% deficit, right? So it also depends on that. So I would say it's a person by person basis, which is why I love having clients go through diet phases with us, because I'm monitoring their biofeedback. I'm seeing if you're actually staying consistent in your cut too, because sometimes, diet phases are hard. They're actually hard to stay within your calorie balance. So I know a lot of people think like, oh, I'm eating very little, but then the weekends come and they binge and they have all these treats and you're actually not eating in a deficit. Like your average for the week is actually way more than you thought. When you are sticking to a very strict cut, and diet phase, there are no binging and a lot of cheats, right? Like we're staying within this. So you're going to be hungry. So it's a person by person basis. I would say start with 3 months, see how you feel, see how your hormones are doing. And then you can assess from there of how long it should last and how long you actually want to be in it per se. And then the next question to follow up with that is, how do you know if you are cutting right? So, I mean, the simple answer here is you're losing inches and weight, right? Also biofeedback is still pretty good. But I don't think the wrong way to cut would be dropping calories to a drastically low level of intake, and then also exerting yourself to a high level of output. This is burning the candle at both ends. It's not going to work well. So as long as you're doing it in a balanced approach, we're eating as much as possible while still losing weight. This is why we start our clients in a higher deficit than a lower deficit, right? Like we're going to start you off in a 10% deficit instead of immediately plunging you into a 20% sometimes. We'll have more wiggle room there. And we're also going to keep up resistance training. We might add some cardio. So the only wrong way would be to burn the candle at both ends and just do extremes. Also adding a ton of fat burners and all of that. Like I would say not necessary. Just, dropping calories into a deficit and making sure we're keeping protein high and monitoring how we feel. That's really it. Super simple, I think. Oh, this is a loaded one. Coming up, someone asked, do hormones affect A1C levels? So A1C levels, if you're unfamiliar, are hemoglobin A1C. It is a blood sugar test that most get done for, to check on the status of diabetes or being pre-diabetic, things like that. So the A1C scale ranges from pretty much 4 to, I could say 15, but if you have an A1C of 12 or 14, like we got a big problem. So pre-diabetes is usually 5.8 to probably 6.5-ish, I think. I don't really know the levels in my head. Over 7 is pretty much diabetic. And then, it goes up and up and up. So for someone without diabetes, we would love to see functional levels. I want to put this because if you go to the doctor, they're going to say anything under 5.8 is fine. And it's like, no, not really. I would love to see your levels under 5. If we have functioning, like insulin sensitivity is great. That's where I would love to see your A1C. If it's over 5, like how over 5 are we? Okay. Like 5.2, we got some wiggle room. I'll also look at your fasting glucose. I'll also look at your fasting insulin. I also want to note that A1C, I used to love this as a pharmacist, like, oh yeah, my blood sugar is high, but I just had cake or had cake last night or had something high sugar. And I'm like, okay, but A1C is the average of the past 3 months. So if that's high, it's like a lifestyle thing. It's not like I just had cake last night, because things like that can elevate your fasting glucose. And some people don't even fast for the glucose test, which doesn't make sense to me if the doctors don't tell you to, but working out can alter the fasting glucose, right? So, A1C is the measure of the past 3 months of how your blood sugar is doing. So I generally like to see it under 5.2 for clients. Under 5 is best. So the question was, do hormones affect these levels? And just like everything in the body, it's all tied together. So yes, they do affect A1C. And I wrote out specifically which hormones and how. So for number 1, cortisol affects A1C levels because if it stays elevated, not like obviously it's the measure over 3 months, right? So if we're having acute cortisol spikes, that's nothing. It's not really going to affect it. But if it's chronically elevated and stays higher than it should for a longer period of time, which is very common these days with like our hustle culture. I say this a lot in these podcast episodes. It can affect blood sugar levels because when cortisol is high, it dumps more blood sugar into the bloodstream to be used as fuel, right? And then we start losing that sensitivity over time, which makes us more insulin resistant, which raises our A1C levels. So too high of cortisol can raise A1C levels. Then we have 2. So estrogen and sex hormones for sure can affect A1C levels. So for example, if you are in menopause and you have lower estrogen, this can affect A1C by raising A1C levels. You are more insulin resistant when going through menopause because estrogen gives us more insulin sensitivity. So in our childbearing years with proper estrogen, we should have more insulin sensitivity. When we reach menopause and our hormones start to go away, for lack of a better word. Can't think of any thesaurus SAT words right now, but when they start to drop, that is when we start to see more insulin resistance. And that's actually an issue in menopause. And, as a little takeaway, some of the things that postmenopausal women really, really, really could benefit from is weight training and resistance training, the best for insulin resistance, eating more high protein, getting in more steps, and just focusing on blood sugar management. This is super key postmenopause. Okay. But yes, so lower estrogen can cause more insulin resistance, AKA higher A1C levels. For men, even low testosterone levels can increase insulin resistance. So low testosterone can raise A1C levels. So keep that in mind. Women with low testosterone as well. We look at that too. And then low thyroid. Thyroid is like the powerhouse of the metabolism, right? So low thyroid can also cause shifts in insulin sensitivity. So there's actually studies showing, thyroid replacement therapy. So thyroid hormone replacement increases like mean corpuscular hemoglobin. So MCH. Oh my gosh, English, actually. MCH, which, you probably don't even notice. It's one of those little lab values under your CBC when you get your lab work, and your reticulocyte count. Thyroid hormone replaces or increases the serum count of red blood cells and the MCH in your blood, which significantly is correlated with A1C level change. So the more of these are, the better results you have, the less your A1C is. So thyroid hormone can also help here too, which is awesome. But if you are suffering with like a higher than normal A1C, check out your stress management, check out your sex hormones. Are they accurate? Are they good? Being on birth control is going to make this a little tough because we can't really get accurate measurements with birth control sometimes. Get your thyroid checked. How's that going? Right. So focus on these things. I like that question a lot. It made me think. Question number 7. Artificial sweeteners. Okay, so the person who asked this, I think I'm going to do a whole episode on artificial sweeteners because there's a lot and people could benefit a lot of information on the different types and why there's so many different types and how they affect and, are they good on insulin and yada, yada, yada. So I'm going to do a whole episode on these. Sorry, but I'm not really answering it on this one. But the second part of that question was also coffee creamers. Can you go over healthy ones or healthier ones? So I'm going to be real honest with you guys. I'm a black coffee drinker. I am. If I go to Starbucks or I go to any coffee shop, it's going to be black coffee, whether it's hot or iced or nitro. I love me a good black coffee. When I'm at home, I will put collagen in my coffee, regular plain old collagen, unflavored, and I will put a splash of unsweetened almond milk in it. Like nothing special. I've never been like a creamer chick or anything, sugar, nothing like that. But if you are, props to you, kudos to you. Let's give you some choices to still enjoy, your favorite drink without either all the chemicals and crap that are in it or without the calorie bombs. So I am going to go over some specialty ones. I put these into categories. So specialty ones and grocery store ones. The specialty ones are kind of calorie bombs, but that's because they're filled with better nutrients. So it just depends on your macro goals, your goals, and how you want to load up your coffee. So for example, for coffee creamers under specialty ones, I have mushroom coffee creamers, which are becoming more popular. They're adaptogens. They contain things like lion's mane, cordyceps, reishi. I do not come at me for these pronunciations of mushrooms. I don't have them written down, literally remembering this by memory. So mushroom coffee creamers are gaining popularity. Some of the brands that are popular now are going to be like Four Sigmatic coffee creamer or almond rye mushroom complex coffee creamer. So you guys can check those out. Just punch them into Google. I don't have any codes or anything for you guys. This is just like from research of what I found. They're very fat heavy because they are made from coconut. So if you do have a tree nut allergy and cannot have coconut, I would avoid these. But for some people who want like a creamier coffee, this will be, I think they're like 9 grams of fat, but you get the benefits of the adaptogens and the mushrooms as well. For number 2 under specialty ones, I have Laird Superfood Complex. I have been very familiar with Laird's. It's also high in fat. It's also made from coconut, but they have like a turmeric one. They have a peppermint mocha one. Like they have different flavors. They have a creamy vanilla one, but it is more of a creamy powder that you put into your coffee. And they call it a superfood complex because they put different things in it like turmeric and depending on which one you buy. So that is also something else if you're looking for like a healthier, nutrient dense coffee creamer, not so much a macro friendly one. And then 3, I have collagen creamers. So I use plain collagen in my coffee. You can't taste it. It doesn't do anything to the coffee. It's still black. but Vital Proteins and some other brands make collagen creamers that are also high in fat because they like to use MCT oil, which is coconut. So a lot of these things, if you're noticing, are very coconut heavy. So be very cognizant of that. Look at the ingredients, but if it's something you want to try to also get some more protein in, like the collagen creamers, go for it. Check it out. I'm just giving you all the information here for you guys to make your own decisions. And then we have the grocery store creamers. So I'm sure a lot of people here use like Coffee Mate and the sugar-free ones and all the flavors that they have at Christmas and all that stuff. It's loaded with crap. It is loaded with so much crap that I'd rather, I think one of the first ingredients is high fructose corn syrup. Like, can we not? Let's get away from that. Bliss and some of those other brands are also kind of full of stuff. So just make sure the ones you're looking at are, you know, more natural. I have two on here that I prefer, and that's what I'm going to go over. So for example, number one are the nut pod mixes. If you've seen the nut pod creamers, they have ones that are made of almond and coconut, and they also have an oat milk one. So if you do have a nut allergy, you can do oat milk. But these are pretty, you know, they do have in their ingredients natural flavors, and they do use gums to make it a little more, like a little thicker. So it's not just like runny water. But as far as a macro standpoint, they're very, very, very clean. Like I wrote down for both of them, for the nut pods, 10 calories per tablespoon, 1 gram of fat, no sugar, no carbs, no nothing. So 1 gram of fat, 10 calories for 1 tablespoon. They have different flavors. You can try those out. The oat milk one is the same macros, and I don't know how, because oat milk is usually a little more carby and sugary, but it does. Kind of crazy. I don't know if they're lying to us, but I'm just writing down what I found online. One disclaimer I do want to put about the nut pods is they do use sunflower oil. So there are some little bit of like seedy oils in here, plant oils in here. I don't know how much. It's towards, you know, towards the end a little bit of the ingredient list, which means it's not as much at the top, but just want to put that out there. But I think these are a healthier alternative for sure to Coffee Mate, right? Second one would be the Califia Farms creamers. I love this brand for almond milk. Like this is the brand I drink because they don't do any of the carrageenan, or they're gluten-free, they're dairy-free, they're soy-free, like all of that. And I care about gluten and dairy-free. I also don't want any of the I wish I had this name, carrageenan, care something. If you don't know what that is, it's in like almond milk, the almond breeze, or it was in like silk, I believe, and it's been found to be like a carcinogen. So we want to avoid this. So the Califia Farms creamers, they have almond milk, they have oat milk one, they have a bunch of different flavors as well. These also contain sunflower oil and sunflower lecithin. So again, just putting that out there. They also have gums in them if you're sensitive to some of the gums. So, you know, but as far as from a calorie and macro standpoint, they're clean. They have 1 gram of fat, 3 grams of sugar, and 20 calories. So pretty great from a calorie standpoint. For macros, if you can't do black coffee or want just a little bit of something extra. Otherwise, if we're really looking at health here, guys, and ingredients, like natural dairy options like milk, or even lactose-free milk from Fairlife, you could do those. That has some protein in it too. Half and half you could do, like creamer or just condensed milk you can do. You can also make your own at home. I think there's recipes online with like half and half condensed milk and vanilla extract. Like you can make your own coffee creamers. I put cinnamon in my coffee just to give it a little extra kick. You could do that too. Pumpkin pie spice around the holidays is so good in coffee. Don't knock it until you try it. Hot coffee. Don't try and mix powder and cold coffee. It backfires. But you could do that. And then unsweetened nut milks like I use. Like I just put a little bit of unsweetened almond milk in my coffee, and I am a happy camper. Doesn't have like a crazy flavor. It just makes it not so bitter if that's what you're going for. So that would be my advice on coffee creamers. I hope that was helpful to some. And then my last question I got, I'm gonna apologize to the person who asked this because it was such a loaded question, and I was like, ooh, I should be able to find this, but I really couldn't. Maybe if I had more time, so maybe I'll dedicate more time to this. But the question was, which supplements should be taken in a milligram per kilogram basis instead of absolute values? And I loved this question because what that means is like, okay, we're told to take such and such of vitamin C daily or vitamin zinc daily. Or if you take coenzyme Q10, it says to take 100 to 200 milligrams a day. Like, okay, cool. But are there supplements that should be dosed based on your body weight? Because again, the argument is like, if I'm a 135-pound female, And let's say my dad is a 240-pound male who's got like 5 or 6 inches on me, how would my dose be the same as his dose, right? If it's not based on body weight, it's just based on maybe age or gender. That doesn't really, like, how would my dose work the same for him? It likely wouldn't, right? So I think in the future, we're going to see, like, I did see some studies and some data, and that the research and the conclusion basically said more studies are needed. So I didn't want to come on here and be like, absolutely, we should be doing it this way. But as far as like vitamin D dosing, vitamin C dosing, a lot of the minerals and things that we have right now are kind of under further testing to dose based on body weight, because, the standard 1000 IUs a day or 800 IUs a day recommended from the FDA may not be cutting it for certain people anymore, right? Because we are going through an obesity epidemic. More people do have more adipose tissue. So how does this affect vitamin dosing, and how will this affect like bigger body sizes, right? So I think we're going to see more literature and more science come out in the future about those. But for right now, nothing's come out to where I can come on this podcast and say, you should absolutely be dosing milligram per kilograms of body weight. One supplement I do see that has like a stereotypical 5 grams per day dosing, I think would actually be better as a milligram per kilogram. And there is data out about it that I can speak about. So I'm going to say is creatine. Creatine monohydrate is very, very, very vastly studied, and there's so many studies on it. And it's kind of like you have 2 ways of taking it. You have a loading phase and then the maintenance phase, or you just do the maintenance phase until you eventually build up. But that maintenance phase is always 5 grams a day. Now, why again would 5 grams a day be sufficient for me at 135 pounds to a male who's 220 pounds, super muscular? Like, it wouldn't really do the same thing, right? So creatine has actually been found to be effectively dosed at 1.1 gram per kilogram. So to me, when I do that math equation, it comes to like 6 grams a day, which, woo, like not much crazier than 5. But let's say I'm going to take out my little calculator or my phone. Let's say I did a 220-pound person, that's 100 kilograms times 0.1, like they would be doing 10 grams per day instead of 5. So double the standard dose. So I think creatine may be one of those supplements that actually needs to be dosed per body weight. Again, check with your doctor if you have kidney issues, pre-existing kidney issues, anything like that. Do not take creatine. This is all just like general education. You still need to check whether this is fine for you to take. And then I did find, funny enough, I did find some data on caffeine, and most of us don't think caffeine is a supplement, but it is. So caffeine actually in sports nutrition is generally better for performance based on a milligram per kilogram before exercise body weight calculation as well. So that would be more in the 3 to 6 milligram per kilogram range for body weight. So for myself, I think on the high end, it was like 300 and something for me, but on the low end, let's see, I think I'm 67 kilos. No, I'm not. 62 kilos, just kidding. 62.7 times 3. So that'd be 188 milligrams of caffeine before exercise on the low end would be good for me to do for performance. And I kind of agree with that. So I think that's a cool thing, instead of just assuming, everyone needs like whatever the scoop of pre-workout is. Like my pre-workout, 1 scoop is 350 milligrams caffeine. That would send me into a panic attack. That'd be crazy. But again, I need less than a 220-pound male would be. So let's see, 100 kilos times 3 on the low end, like I need 188 for exercise performance. They would need 300, right? So it all depends on how susceptible you are to caffeine. Some people are also slow metabolizers. Some people are fast metabolizers. So again, individual basis, but I found that pretty interesting. As far as other supplements, we're really going to need more data, or I'm going to need more time to research. So that's the one area where I struggled on here, but I did find creatine was super interesting, and how other vitamins are coming out with testing in the future about milligram per kilogram. So I'm going to stay tuned on that because I'm interested for clients, myself, general knowledge. I'm just a nerd like that. So let's get into the personal questions. Yay. Thankfully, we only had like 5. Only 5 personal questions. And I always get this one. So I put it first. Are you single? With a follow-up question of if so, why? And this was in the anonymous box. So I don't even know who asked it. It's always in the anonymous box, I feel like. Yes. Guys, I am currently single. I've been single for math, going on 11 months now. And I will say it's been a very fun time being single, not fun in like the way of like casual dating or whatever, but just I've never been someone who's been single for a very long time. I don't know if that sounds cocky or conceited or codependent, all three C's. I don't mean it to sound those ways, but I always like kind of got out of a relationship and got into a new one. I've always been like a serial monogamist. And this time I didn't want to do that. I wanted to take the time to learn the patterns and figure out what was going on with me, figure out the direction I wanted. So I've spent a lot of time dating. Being single. I have dated in between and like gone out on dates, but nobody that really like stuck or really solidified that kind of connection. So I'm not really going to settle until I find what I'm looking for or just that connection that I mesh well with. So, if so, that's why I'm single, is because I'm kind of working on myself, focusing on my business, focusing on being happy and whole with me, so that when I do meet a partner, it's not the wrong partner anymore. Like I've set the boundaries, I've set the standards. Recovering codependent, I make that joke a lot, but it's not really a joke. Like it is true that I used to very much get into relationships and kind of abandon myself. And for someone who has abandonment issues, it's funny that I would abandon myself. So now I've just built up myself so much that I'm so comfortable being alone. I'm comfortable with my company. I know what I'm looking for. I know what I'm doing with my life. I'm kind of just like getting all these things set and not needing that constant attention and validation and whatever I used to think I needed when I was single, or what I was missing. So it's been a very uncomfortable process, especially going through birthdays and holidays and like cuffing season and all of that alone. But it's really opened my eyes a lot. I've been solo traveling, right? Like I've just been trying to do things to really get to know me so that when the right person does come in, I will be ready for it and be open to it and be able to recognize red flags sooner. So yeah, so in a long-winded response, I am single and that is why I'm single, and I'm not opposed to dating. I'm just, focused on other things right now. So I know this question always comes up too about my age. I'm not rushing shit because of my age. The worst thing you could do is be in a relationship with the wrong person. Been there, done that. Have a child with the wrong person. No, thank you. Like these are big decisions. I'm not trying to rush it. So is what it is. Question number 14. How long have you been a coach? Yeah. So I have been a coach for, oh my God, what's today? May 18th. I've been a coach for 4.5 years. 4.5 years, I started the Big Day Nutrition, which is now Team BD and Coaching. So I was a coach a little bit, probably an unofficial coach, but I've been a coach for 4.5 years and I've been full-time for 2.5 years. So that's really fun. I did pharmacy and coaching for 2 years. Learned a ton, still learning, never going to be done learning, but I absolutely love it. And I can't believe I'm literally celebrating 2.5 years full-time in 2 days. Like you guys are going to be listening to this and Saturday is my 2.5 year anniversary. That was like 2.5 years ago was my last shift at Publix pharmacy. I'm gonna have to do something fun. Question number 15. What is your biggest achievement? Oh, I like this question, but I have no idea. I mean, I guess starting a company, right? I don't know. I've done some pretty cool things in my life as far as like athletics and scholarships and winning NPC like bodybuilding competitions, graduating from pharmacy school. But I think it's been really cool to, can you guys hear my stomach rumbling? I'm hungry. I think it's been really cool to walk away from a stereotypical career that you go to school for, you get put in so much debt for, a 6-figure salary to pursue my passions instead. Like, I think that has been my biggest achievement and see that through. I also like to look at it as my biggest achievement is standing up for like what I believe in instead of band-aids and non-preventative care. Like, I think that's a big achievement. Because that's hard. That's hard to do. It's hard to not follow the norm, right? And I think it's a big achievement for myself personally to overcome all of these fears and anxieties and imposter syndrome and just kind of do shit scared. Like I've talked about on previous episodes, and actually one of these questions is anxiety. So I think it ties into it nice. I've talked about on previous episodes, my, battles with anxiety and panic attacks and health anxiety and stuff like that. And so I think it's really hard when your brain is telling you all the ways it could go wrong and why it would go wrong and all these things, and you still do it anyway. Like you still go anyway. And actually that was kind of, you can't see if you're not on the video, but for my new tattoo I got when I was in Iceland, like courage and strength and all of that, like do shit scared anyway. The time is going to pass. You're never not going to be scared. Anxiety is a bitch, y'all. Once you have it and once you experience, I never had it until I was like 26. And then I had this horrible experience with tuna, which I've also put on an episode here about anxiety. And just, it spiraled me into this PTSD. Like once I had the feeling, I couldn't ever shake it. And now I know that feeling. And so now it's kind of like a teetering exercise with myself of like, am I anxious or am I excited? Because they're the same feeling, right? But I think battling all of that and still pressing forward is also just like a huge achievement for myself. Staying single for a long time is a huge achievement for myself. There's a lot. So, but I think I'm going to say like running a business is, and keeping it going for 4.5 years now is probably one of my biggest achievements is seeing this through and keeping it through, and hiring people and employing people and being able to pay others. That's awesome. Like I love being able to provide other people the ability to become healthier and happier humans, and then also get to live out their passions by coaching others. So their dream job. I think that is awesome. That is huge. And I'm grateful for that every day. As far as the anxiety question, do you take anything for your anxiety? Nope, I don't. I would make an inappropriate joke on here, but I don't know who's gonna listen to it. But I am, like that meme that's like, I'm pulling an all day or no naps. I'm pulling I don't know. Like, I'm not taking anything. Not even like ashwagandha at this point. Like I do take magnesium at night, magnesium glycinate before bed, but no judgment on anyone who takes medication, obviously, right? Like I was a pharmacist that dispensed a lot of it. We have clients who are on it. I did not like it. I did not like it. And I also saw it as a numbing agent. And when I took it, it confirmed it to me that it was a numbing agent for me, not for others. Like I'm specifically talking about myself. And I mean that because it took the edge off, right? Like I pushed back against meds so much when I was like 27, 28, and I was going to therapy, and this like PTSD food thing was just like really bad. Like go listen to the episode, y'all. I didn't eat carrots for 6 months. It was weird. But I finally just got tired of everyone telling me I needed meds, and I went on them. I was like, fine, I will do the 4 to 6 week trial just to appease all of you and get off my back. So we did Zoloft, and it curbed my appetite so much. I didn't want to eat, which, it doesn't happen for everyone. Usually SSRIs, which is what Zoloft is, can make people gain weight. But it made me, I feel like, a shell of a human. So yes, it numbed the anxious, bad feelings. It like elevated those, but it also brought down the very high moments. And like, you guys see my personality on social media. Like I'm very bouncy and energetic and ADD and bubbly and whatever. It brought that down. So I really just felt flatlined, and I kind of felt like a zombie. Speaking of zombie, I also had insomnia for 3 weeks. I felt like I didn't sleep. Like, I think I probably had to have slept, but most nights I felt like I just laid there with my eyes open. Like I couldn't sleep. I hated it. And I made this joke to a client one time about giving it an antidepressant try, which means trying something for 4 to 6 weeks and giving it like the real try. I called it the AD try, which is also my initials, because that's how long it takes for an antidepressant to fully work. And for some of the side effects to be self-limiting is 4 to 6 weeks. So I gave it that 6-week try, gave it that antidepressant try. And I was like, this sucks. Get me off of it. And, we're being real on this podcast. Insomnia was not fun, but it's also not fun having sexual side effects. All right. If you're already depressed and you're dealing with like not so great feelings, not being able to orgasm is zero fun. for anyone. Who would sign up for that? Unfortunately, those were the side effects I had with Zoloft. So, gave it the try, got off of it. And then I was like, let me try a new one. So I went on Wellbutrin. Wellbutrin, I gave 4 or 5 days, and it gave me such crazy muscle twitches everywhere that I didn't want to do it. I was like, screw this. We're going back to CBT, like cognitive behavioral therapy. We're going back to therapy. We're going back to breathing techniques. Like we're going to meditation. I'm going to do whatever I can to not take meds. And so I've been there since then. I did have a spout where with COVID, so in 2020, I got COVID like right when it came out. So probably like August, September, because I was a pharmacist still giving flu shots and still working during the pandemic. And I got it from a patient and I had all the symptoms, but the end of it was like the psychosis symptoms where I had like a panic attack daily. My heart rate, like how I felt was just so anxious. And I remember getting on a telehealth appointment with my doctor and she was worried I had a clot, but I didn't because I was able to sit still in my seat. Whereas sometimes people with clots like can't stop moving. I don't know. That was crazy what she was saying, but she did almost want me to go in for like a D-dimer test, which is what you would do for a blood clot. But instead, she gave me a prescription for 5 milligrams of Lexapro and some Xanax. And I think I took the Xanax for a day or two, felt super weird and did not like the feelings. It made me feel like how I did, like very quickly, just did not like the side effects and was like, no, I don't want this. I don't want it. I'm not good with drugs anyway. I'm very sensitive. Like even the Xanax is 0.25 milligrams. I think I cut that shit into quarters and it would still knock me out if I ever took it and if I ever needed it. Like it's not something I can take and function on during the day and work or, be a pharmacist at the time. No chance. So in fact, the bottle is probably somewhere buried under something expired from 3 years ago with like probably 25 pills still left in it. I should probably go find that. But I haven't taken anything for it. Occasionally I'll take some like rhodiola or ashwagandha, like some type of stress supplement like that. I'll do chamomile tea at night, but really I just try and like walk, get out in nature, talk through it with people. I have therapy appointments weekly or bi-weekly, depending on what I'm going through. So I find that to be more beneficial for me because I don't like the side effects of medication. But if you can totally, you feel better on them, you like them, go for it. It's obviously your choice. I just personally didn't love them for me. And then the last question someone asked me, and I've done a podcast episode on this too, so I won't really expand on it here, was because I posted the other day about like bulking and the weight gain journey. And so the question was, why do you lose so much weight before? And it's not that I intentionally lost weight. In 2021, I had lost 8.5 pounds, probably over a 7-month period, 8-month period. I don't know. I don't really know how long it took, but it happened fast. And then I couldn't gain weight. And I simply, you can go listen to the episode. I think it's titled The Hardest 8.5 Pounds I've Ever Gained or something like that. Because I was in a very toxic relationship and it made me so anxious and high strung for the whole time. And I didn't realize it. I thought something else was wrong with me. That's why I was losing weight. Like, I went and got all these tests done. I had palpitations. I wore a heart monitor. I was doing acupuncture. No, it was just my environment. And I was in like a high stress constant. My appetite was shit because I was under such crazy emotional stress that I didn't want to eat food. I made myself eat food. Like I was still eating 2,200 calories, but because of how many calories I was burning per day, I was just losing weight and couldn't put any on. So even though it was the most I've ever eaten in my life. So since I got out of that relationship last year, I have been able to calm down my nervous system. I've been able to eat more. I've been able to put weight on, muscle on. As you guys have seen, I've gained 12 pounds, which is awesome. So we're still going on up. But that's why I lost so much weight before. So this has been a fun episode of like random hodgepodge of topics. I'm definitely going to do this again in the future. We'll see what the questions are. But if you guys have any questions or comments about any of these things, as always, slide in my DMs at dr.dwyer on Instagram. You'll get all of those tags in the show notes. And I will see you guys next week. Oh, real quick, we have our summer, oh my God, words. We have our summer coaching special going on right now, which is 10% off of coaching specials. I do not run discounts on coaching packages very often. We do it twice a year, summer and Black Friday. So this is the one of the only times you're going to get a coaching package discount, and it's 10% off, which depending on the plan can be anywhere from $100 to almost $500, depending on the time length and the plan and all the encompassing things you can add. So to take advantage of that, you just have to fill out a coaching application by the end of May, and you have 1 month from your consult call to decide if you want to join. You don't have to join before May ends. You just have to apply. So I'm going to put that application in the show notes as well, and I will see you guys next week. Toodles.